Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack a massive scientific debate from 2026 that is literally shaking up the entire foundation of modern therapy and wellness. If you've spent any time at all looking into trauma, stress, or just nervous system regulation recently, you have absolutely encountered something called polyvagal theory. I mean, it's been the absolute cornerstone of therapy for years, giving answers to people who frankly felt completely lost. But recently, a major scientific paper dropped that completely challenged it. So today, we're going to break down exactly what this debate is all about, what these scientists are actually arguing, and most importantly, what it means for your own physiology. But before we get into all the heavy neuroscience, let's just start with your own lived experience. You know that feeling. You're just sitting on the couch, your environment is perfectly safe, you are objectively not under attack at all, but your body clearly didn't get the memo. You feel this intense, unexplained physical stress bubbling up out of nowhere. It's like a phantom alarm bell is just blaring, and you have absolutely no idea how to turn it off. The physical reality of it just hits you so hard. Your heart is pounding, your jaw is clenched, you absolutely cannot think straight. And what's so incredibly isolating about this is that someone might just walk into the room and casually ask, "Hey, are you okay?" And you just say yes. Why? Because you literally lack the words to explain why your body is reacting this way. You don't have the language for the storm happening inside of you, which leaves you feeling entirely alone in the experience. Well, that complete lack of language is exactly what changed in the 1990s. Neuroscientist Stephen Porges proposed this radical new idea called polyvagal theory. See, at the time, everyone basically thought our nervous systems had two modes, on and off, right? Stressed and calm. But Porges came along and suggested a framework with three operational modes. And wow, this idea spread like wildfire. It went absolutely everywhere, into therapy offices, best-selling trauma books, and eventually it just took over wellness TikTok and social media. It finally gave people a clinical name for what they were feeling. The anatomy behind this is honestly fascinating. Porges proposed that the main character of this whole system is the vagus nerve. It's actually the longest nerve in the human body, running all the way from your brainstem down through your heart, your lungs, and deep into your gut. Porges argued that this specific nerve has two distinct pathways, and those pathways essentially dictate why your body does what it does when it feels threatened. It was like a real-time map of our physical reactions. And therapist Deb Dana brilliantly translated these really complex concepts into something we now wildly embrace as the vagal ladder. It's so easy to picture. At the top, step 1 is ventral vagal. You feel safe, you're connected, calm, the world makes sense. Now, if a threat appears, you drop down to step 2, sympathetic activation. That's your classic fight or flight. Heart rate is up, muscles tense, you're ready for action. But if that threat is completely overwhelming, you drop all the way down to step 3, dorsal vagal, freeze and shut down. From the outside, you look fine, like nothing is happening. But from the inside, you can't move, you're exhausted, you're just totally checked out. This ladder gave millions of people the accessible language to say, this is the rung my body is stuck on today. Which brings us to the massive plot twist. February 2026, 39. That is the exact number of neurophysiologists and anatomists who banded together to publish a huge, coordinated critique of this very foundation we just talked about. We're not talking about a quiet, minor disagreement here. This was a highly organized challenge from 39 separate experts all at once. They published a paper in the journal Clinical Neuropsychiatry with this totally dramatic title, Why the Polyvagal Theory is Untenable. Untenable. I mean, that is a massive statement to make in the scientific community. When this paper dropped, therapy TikTok completely lost its mind. Wikipedia entries were being urgently updated. For anyone who had built their understanding of their own bodily responses around that vagal ladder, it literally felt like the floor had just dropped out from under them. So let's neutrally break down exactly what these scientists are arguing. The paper basically goes after three specific scientific challenges. First, they are challenging the evolutionary claims Porges made about how the nervous system developed over millions of years. Second, they dispute the strict anatomical distinction he drew between those two vagal pathways. And third, they question using heart rate variability as a reliable way to measure vagal tone. Now, just to be completely objective here, versions of these debates have been circulating in peer review since way back in 2007. But this 2026 paper, this represents a massive, highly coordinated challenge that brought it all into the spotlight. But hey, before we assume everything we know is totally wrong, let's remember this is just how science works. It's an argument, not a final verdict. It is an ongoing, dynamic debate. Actually, Stephen Porges published his own direct response in the exact same issue of that journal. The 39 scientists presented their data, Porges presented his, and the vigorous, messy process of peer review is just continuing exactly as it should. To really make sense of this debate, I love this core metaphor: the map versus the territory. Okay, think of the map as polyvagal theory itself, the specific neurological and anatomical mechanisms Porges proposed. That 2026 paper is strictly challenging the map. They're arguing over the exact biological coordinates. But then you have the territory. The territory is your actual lived physiology. It's the very real fact that nervous system dysregulation exists. It's the reality that sometimes you shut down to protect yourself instead of fighting back. The scientists are arguing about the map. Literally, no one is disputing the reality of the territory. And because that territory is undeniable, your physiology tools absolutely still work. Breathing exercises, movement, splashing cold water on your face, sound, rest, rhythm. If you use these tools to help regulate your nervous system when you're overwhelmed, you do not need to stop. They still work because they interact with undeniable human biology. The reality of your body responding to these physical inputs is completely undisputed by those 39 scientists. The relief you feel is real, regardless of what the map looks like. Ultimately, a theory being incomplete is just not the same thing as it being useless. Every single framework we have ever had for the human body has eventually been revised. That isn't a failure. That's literally just science working. The Vagal Ladder might not be a perfect literal anatomical diagram anymore, but you know what? It successfully did its job. It made incredibly complex, overwhelming physical states legible for millions of people who desperately needed it. At the end of the day, your nervous system was doing what it does long before Stephen Porges ever put a name to it. That's not a theory. That's your body. That tightening in your chest, that sudden shutdown, those moments where you are perfectly fine and then suddenly you're just not, that has always been your body trying to tell you something to keep you safe. Whether science decides to keep calling it polyvagal theory or invents an entirely new name for it tomorrow, it doesn't change a single thing about what you felt or the tools that actually helped you heal. So the question I'll leave you with today is, now that you know the territory is undeniably yours, how will you listen to what your body is trying to tell you next?